Now, before we get into deploying the app service and the Azure bot resource using the ARM templates, I'm going to quickly run through the code and just exactly how it works. So at the start, I import the necessary packages to make this bot functional, and those are the bot builder. So this essentially is a framework, the Azure bot builder, for communicating and developing Azure bots. The next is a standard import OS for those OS level functionalities for the Python language. And the next two are Azure Core. So this is for communicating to the core Azure service for obtaining keys, for instance, and Azure AI Text Analytics. So that's going to be used for communicating to our language service that we made earlier. So I note two variables for connecting to the language resource that we will fill in later. So that is the endpoint and the key. And here is a simple class that we call myBot. And the first function is an onMessage activity. So essentially what this is saying is whenever a message to the bot is sent, execute this. And what is entailed is I create a list, and this list is of what I call documents, and I use the text analytics client to authenticate myself using the endpoint and the credentials. And then after that, I append what the user has said. So I add that to the list. And then I call the recognize PII entities function using the text analytics client on the documents. So essentially, I'm calling this function on what the user has said. And I will loop through those documents and do some quick checks. And I have another loop here, which essentially replies back with the original document, so what the user had originally sent through to the service. And then I reply back with the redacted text, so the version that has all the personal identifiable information extracted out of it. And then I individually list what entities I have taken out and what the categories were. So for instance, if I say I live at blah, blah, blah address, it will redact the address from that text, and it will essentially say that the entity address with category address got redacted. And so that's what it will say for all of the categories that it extracts. And then I have another function here, which essentially this is the first function that gets executed when a new member is added to the chat window. So when a user launches up the session, this is the first thing that gets executed because they've been added to the chat session essentially. So what I do here is I simply do a simple for loop for all of those newly added members to the session, and I say hello and welcome to the PII detection bot. So that is essentially the logic of the bot. So next we will go with deploying those resources.